Hi everyone, my name's Bailey Cartwright and I am a senior on the Notre Dame women's soccer team. I'm the founder of Stronger Scars, which is basically a social media platform for injured athletes or anyone to share their injury story. And as of right now, that has been a social media platform, and I have a podcast called Stronger Scars, but I've been thinking, and I think the next step for the Stronger Scars is to take it to YouTube. I really like where you get to watch someone tell their story and you can see their face. I think it just helps make it a little more personable and relatable. So I just wanted to, be the first to go and tell my story via YouTube. I'm really excited to do this. I think that if I can even help one person and maybe make one person feel like they can get through something they're going through, then, that's enough for me. And yeah, so with that being said, I'm just going to tell you guys, about my injury. So it starts my freshman preseason. I started having really severe cramps in my calves. So we tried to do some things, foam roll, sit out for a little, and it ended up just being too bad, and we went and saw a doctor back in South Bend. And for anyone who knows anything about compartment syndrome and the pressure test that you have to get to figure out whether you have it or not, it's super invasive. Basically, it's a pretty thick needle that has a measurement reader on it, and you get measures before you work out and then after you run on the treadmill. My numbers, I think, were pretty high even at rest. I think they were in the 60s, and a normal was 15. But after rest, I had numbers in the 90s and the 80s. So I was advised to get surgery and get surgery pretty fast. So I got tested on a Monday, and that Wednesday I geared up and got surgery. That was actually our team's first home game too, so I had to miss that. I had to miss the freshman dance, and that's something like my teammates still talk about, and that's, I think, one of the hardest things, is just missing out on things that I wish I could have been a part of, but because of my injury and things I had to do for the well-being of myself, I missed out on a lot of things. And just want you guys to know, I don't have notes. I honestly am winging this, so please bear with me, but I pride myself on being super blunt and honest about things, and I think that when talking about your story and what you've been through, it's important to be honest. Like I said, I want to help you guys, and I want to be authentic, and I want my story to be told as it was, as I was going through it. So going forward, I was recovering from my first surgery, and I was getting nowhere. I didn't even get back to really running or playing soccer before that December. I got a second surgery. So I got my second fasciotomy, and that round was a little tougher, knowing that something I thought was going to be fixed in August brought me to December, and I still have yet to step on the field or really do any kind of, I wasn't even running at that point. So that one really didn't sit well with me, and it was a really hard adjustment for me to kind of open my eyes and realize that, right now your normal is not stepping on the soccer field. And obviously there were a lot of mental emotions, but I'm going to kind of go back through and talk about how I felt mentally and emotionally going through my surgeries. So then I actually got to recover, yay, from my second surgery, and I recovered really hard that spring and the summer, and then I got to participate in the full preseason my sophomore year. I got to run the fitness tests, which I was so excited about because I actually got to run it, and I was feeling great. I was feeling back to my normal self, and I growing up as, most people who continue to play a sport in college, I was confident in my abilities, and I felt invincible. I was excited to, go to Notre Dame and make a name for myself. And all of that seemed, if not diminished, but delayed for me, and it was really scary, and it was hard for me. That was a hard pill for me to swallow. So I felt like my time was finally coming. I got to start in the first game my sophomore year, and I felt like all the surgeries were worth it, and everything I've been through was worth it. And I that was a hard outlook. I placed so much pressure on soccer, and who was I without soccer? I was no one. That's what I thought, at least. So as my sophomore season, kept going, I was having leg pain again. And after pushing through it for a while, weighing my options, considering Botox, which is another remedy for compartment syndrome sometimes, I talked with my surgeon back in Pittsburgh, and I decided to get my third and up to the state final surgery. So I got that one my sophomore year during Easter break. So quite a long time has passed since my second surgery, that freshman December. And I think that this surgery was the third surgery was the toughest, because I felt like, having to retire and be done was, itching up closer and closer. I felt like if this surgery doesn't do it, then literally what else can I do? That was at the point where I was just kind of like screaming at God. I was screaming at doctors and trainers, and I just wanted answers. I was scared. I think anyone who goes through any injury, big or small, it's scary. Your body doesn't feel like itself. Your abilities aren't themselves, and it's a huge question process. And like I just mentioned, like, who am I without soccer? That was a question I woke up every day and asked myself. Like, I don't know. I think that's one of the hardest things with injuries and loss of, the game you love. So, that was my sophomore spring, and this junior season, I had issues here and there. I was working to try to get some playing time. I was still recovering quite far into the fall, and I got to have a comeback game against Pitt, which obviously is where I'm from, so it was just awesome to run on the field and give my teammates a hug. And I think that was one of the moments where, whether I was still the best at soccer or not, I think that's where I kind of realized, like, this is why you're doing it. You're not doing it. I'm not, at this point, 3 surgeries in, I'm not doing it to break records. I'm not doing it to please people. I think at that point, it hit me like I was doing this for myself and to prove to myself that I would not give up. And that, for me, that moment running onto the field, I remember sobbing. I didn't give up, and I'm still not giving up. Going into my senior season, one of the things that I want to be completely blunt is, of course I've questioned quitting, and of course, like, there's been so many days where I've suffered from severe anxiety and depression from my injury, and there's been days where I wouldn't get out of bed. I would cry before practice because I could not accept that the new normal for me is not the same as one of, the best players in the world. And it's been a very slow process for me mentally, and I think I finally have gotten to a point where I'm proud of myself. And being someone who's so hard on themselves, like, that's hard to say, and I'm finally proud of myself. So yeah, I just want to kind of go back and talk about some of the mental obstacles that I faced. And I think that hearing things from other people you might not even think that you were acting one way, and it might kind of just come to your mind of, maybe this is something you can change in order to help your mental or physical game. So yeah, my freshman year, when I first got introduced to compartment syndrome, I think that my biggest issue was I was just really embarrassed. I was embarrassed to be the injured girl, both on my soccer team and off my soccer team. I have really big scars. For those of you who know what compartment syndrome is, you get really pretty lengthy scars on your shins, about that big. I'm not going to show you guys right now, but you can go look on my Instagram if you'd like to see. But there were many times I'd wake up in the morning and the first thing I would do is go look in the mirror because I was so embarrassed. I was like, no one's going to like me. I'm going to be the weird one. And sometimes that self-judgment was put to truth when some people, would ask me like, OMG, those are so ugly, or like, is that from shaving? And I think times like those were the ones that really kind of broke me down and made me think that like I'm ugly and I'm not enough. And those were thoughts that I carried with me well into my, the summer after my freshman year, before I started Stronger Scars. And I kind of realized that the scars, any scar you have tells a story. People who don't have scars, they're just missing a story. But I think freshman year I was more confused. I think that, I was the most upset of not getting to play, obviously. And, I think for any freshman it's a hard time just because you're adjusting to a new environment and college is new, making new friends, like the level of the sport's new. So I think I was just kind of still in shock from everything, that I didn't really have time to be too worried about the injury specifics. But I think then going on to my second surgery, that's when I started to go down some dark holes, and I was just really unhappy with where I was in my life. And, like I said before, I identified myself so much, if not completely, with soccer and being a soccer player. And that at that point, that was taken away from me for an entire year. I started seeing a sports psychologist who helped me so much. But I still think it's easy to go into a meeting with a psychologist and put on a happy face and not really tell them what's going on. And I think that one of the things looking back now that I wish I would have done, and I do now, is, lean on my teammates and my coaches more and realize it's okay to be vulnerable. I just wanted to hide everything because I was so afraid that if people knew I was upset, that they would judge me and not want to hang out with me. And in the long run, all I did was hurt myself more, and I went deeper into a dark hole. So I think that, that freshman spring, I was really lost, and, I think that's okay. One of the things I like to say to people who confide in me with, what's going on with them, I like to say it's okay to be okay, because it really is. When you hit a point where you want to change things and you want to change how you're feeling, you can only go up. I think that for me, like I said, like having resources, I felt like my team wasn't really a resource because I completely disconnected myself from my team. And that's something I'm not proud to say, but for me, it was easier to play a pity game for myself and, question why my teammates were reaching out to me, and why, that was easier for me than me reaching out to them and telling them what was going on. But, teammates are a resource that you should use. And, if you think that someone's too busy and don't want to hear what you're saying, that's not true. I assure you that if you open up and talk to one of your teammates, they will help you, and they will be so grateful that you confided in them. Coaches, honestly, is another one. I feel like some people honestly can think that their coaches might look at them differently on the field. I think that's a huge stigma. I can attest that I've opened up to my coaches a lot the past couple years, more recent so, because I'm learning. But at the end of the day, like, you got recruited to go somewhere, even in high school. Your coach wants to be there for not only you as an athlete, they want to be there for you as a person. And especially at Notre Dame, like, we preach, like, you're a student first, you're a person first. So it has become extremely easier for me to want to open up to my coaches and open up to my coaches. But I think that, you have to, one of the hardest things, I would say, if not the hardest thing, one of the hardest things for me during my process has been feeling comfortable and wanting to open up to people. It's been hard, and I think that's one of the hardest things. A lot of people who come on the Stronger Scars podcast talk about, oh, like, this is the first time that I've opened up about this, or no, I haven't talked to my teammates about that. And I just want to encourage you guys to use your teammates and use the people who love you, because I just think that it can only help. But going off that, I think injuries are tough to navigate because everyone is so different and we all react to things extremely differently. But I think that, when I created Stronger Scars back I think it was my sophomore year, I had the complete intention to just give people, it started as athletes, but I definitely want that to be more of everyone in general. Like, we need a safe place to share our stories and have people lift people up. Like, I know it's cheesy, the mantra, embrace the strength that our scars give us, but honestly, like, your scars mean so much more than you're giving them credit for. Like I said, my freshman year, I would look at them and think how ugly they are and how ugly they made me. But now, my scars, like, they're my babies. I'm so proud of them. Like, I will wear a dress intentionally to something so people see my scars. And, hey, they may look at them in disgust. Or, hey, they might ask me, oh my gosh, like, what are those from? And then I get to share my story. I get to share what I've been through. And, it's nothing to be ashamed of. I'm proud now. I'm proud of what I've been through. I'm proud I didn't quit. I think that, we can only do things that we feel lifted to do. Like, I feel very empowered to just lift you guys up. If you're going through a hard time, like, just know that someone is there to hear it. And maybe you'll hear my story. And if you ever need to talk, you guys can find me on social media. And, like, I think that, you're never stuck in a dark place. God, shout out to Cameron. I use this all the time, but it's literally one of my favorite things ever. God only puts on you as much as he knows you can handle. If you're not strong enough to handle something, God won't put it on you. And whether you're a Christian or believe in a God or God of some sorts, then you can attest that, when an injury happens, sometimes there is no explanation. Compartment syndrome, I know it's mostly because of bad luck. It's because you were born with something that in the end reflects that. But I think that, if you've gone through something, whether you came out of it on the right side or not, you were first placed with that challenge because God thinks you're strong enough to handle it. And that is one of the things that I keep so near to my heart, because there's been so many times where I've wanted to give up, and so many times where people told me to give up. And people questioning, like, oh my gosh, how are you still going? Like, I would have given up by now. And to me, that's not an option, Like, giving up's not an option, because I don't want that to be an option for any of us. I think that anyone can fight through their worst demons. And, mine being this injury. And I think that, we can look at things a lot on a broader spectrum than just injury. And, things that happen in people's lives, like these mental scars, that's a real thing. And it's super underrated. And I I hope that, like, Stronger Scars can shed some light on those mental scars, because I honestly think they're just as important as physical scars. I feel like this seems like I'm going on a rant now. So I am going to conclude shortly because, like I said, I have no notes and I don't even know what I said. I tend to speak better when I don't have notes because I get freaked out if I have notes. But I think, honestly, the one point I just kind of, want to get across is that things that we've gone through and things that you have coming ahead of you, don't give up. Look at those scars in the mirror. If you're embarrassed of your scars in the mirror, don't give up. Keep looking at them every day until they signify something more to you, because they will, I promise. And, for someone who thinks that they are only an athlete, don't give up, because I promise you're more than an athlete. And I promise, one day you will have a realization and you'll find who you really are. This isn't easy stuff, and I'm not really sure how my breakthrough happened. I think I was sick and tired of feeling unimportant, and I think that we all deserve to feel important. And if sharing our stories about injuries or whatever we've been through can give us, a sense of someone's caring and someone thinks we're important, then why wouldn't we share it? So that being said, I just want to thank you guys so much for listening to my story and my rambling. But in all honesty, if you feel obligated to, or you want to reach out with any questions, or just kind of talk to me or share your story on YouTube or a podcast or the social media, please let me know, because every story deserves to be heard. And if you want to share yours, I would love to have you. So thank you guys.